Welcome to the Warrior in Progress podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer McKee, certified health coach and motivational speaker. I just want to welcome you here today. Thank you so much for listening. This episode is titled, How Can I Reach My Goals and Move Forward, Become a Better Version of Myself if I Don't Trust or Believe in Myself? This was a crucial issue that I had when I first started. As you guys know, I've lost 185 pounds naturally without surgery, drugs, starvation, deprivation, diets, or any of that stuff. But the first thing I had to ask myself was, okay, how can I start making changes, lasting change, if I don't trust or believe in myself? I want to talk to you about a few tips that maybe you can implement into your life to help you if you struggle with this. The first thing is denial. I was in denial for a very long time about the consequences of my actions or lack thereof. So I had to really ask myself, what are the costs of continuing my life making the choices that I'm currently making? And by the way, when you're not doing something, that's a choice to not do it. So for me, I was not really caring about the food I put into my body. I was eating the quickest and easiest things. I was eating the things that made me feel good in the moment. I was turning to food to numb myself and because I couldn't really cope with life. I couldn't cope with life on life's terms. There were a lot of things happening in my life that I couldn't control, and I didn't know how to deal with that. I didn't want to feel the emotions that I was feeling, and so I just turned to food. So I was denying to myself for a long time about the severity of my issue. And I reached a point when I was about 37 years old, and I said to myself, okay, I have to be honest here. If I continue doing what I'm doing, it scares the hell out of me where I'm going to be in 6 months, in a year. You know, I was 358 pounds. And I remembered when I had just hit 300. And all of a sudden, I'm at 358. I knew that if I continued my life the way I was, I'd be at 400 pounds very quickly. And at this point, at 37, as I mentioned in the trailer, I had made a promise to myself that by the time I was 40 years old, I would have figured out this weight issue. At this rate, I wasn't doing so good. I got 3 years left until I hit 40. And at this point, I'm 358. So I thought, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to do this? So the first thing was I had to be honest with myself about the trajectory of my life if I continued making the choices that I was making. I had to snap out of denial. I had to ask myself, what are the costs of continuing my life the way that I am? And that took a lot of honesty with myself. The second thing is I discovered integrity. And I want to thank Chris and Heidi Powell for this, because if it wasn't for Chris and Heidi Powell, I'm not really sure that I would have gotten this part of it. Basically what happened is I think it was maybe the second day that I decided to start making some small changes, I read a blog post by Heidi Powell, and it was all about integrity. Integrity is doing what you say you're going to do. And in this blog post, Heidi talked about how so often we have no problem doing what we say we're going to do with other people that we care about, with work. You know, if we're going to be sick from work, we call in and let them know. With our spouse, our significant other, children, our parents, our friends. You know, if we tell them we're going to do something, we do it. If something happens or something comes up unexpectedly, we're not going to be able to follow through. We contact them and say, hey, look, I can't do this, right? But it's very different with ourselves. So often, we are not keeping our word to ourselves. You know, how many times have you said, diet starts Monday, diet starts January 1st? You know, starting tomorrow, I'm going to start going to the gym every single day. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to start talking a little bit nicer to myself. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to drink X cups of water every day. You know, and we might stick to that for a little bit, but then something happens, we don't hold ourselves accountable, and then before we know it, we're back to our old habits. And then it's a double whammy, because not only are we slipping back into our old habits, but we're beating ourselves up. Do you relate to this? This was the story of my life. The other problem with this is I felt like I had to be perfect, so I felt like I had to be, tracking my food and staying within 10% of my macros, drinking half of my body weight in ounces of water. I had to be doing everything exactly perfect, working out X times a week. If I wasn't doing those things, then I was a failure. So I started recognizing that I had made a lot of promises to myself over the years, and I had not stayed in integrity with myself. When we don't stay in integrity with ourselves, that's how we lose trust and belief in our abilities. So I want to give an example of this to make it a little bit clearer. Let's say that your child needs to be picked up from school and you're not able to do it. And if you have a spouse or significant other, they're not able to do it for whatever reason. So you're looking for someone to pick your child up from school. Let's say that your friend offers to do it. She says, no problem, I'll be there right at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock comes around, you're at work. 30 minutes later, you get a call from your child. And your child saying, so-and-so did not show up and I'm stranded here at the school. Now, this is an important thing, right? To pick up your child from school. So how would you be feeling at that moment? Most likely, you would be feeling a little irritated. And you'd also probably be feeling a little bit of fear because you want to make sure your child gets picked up. So let's say you have to tell your boss, you have to leave work, and you go pick your child up. Your friend calls you later and she says, look, I'm so sorry. I forgot. She just makes up a lot of excuses as to why she couldn't be there. Now, this is really unlike her. So you're willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. She says, let me make it up to you. I can pick him up tomorrow from school, not a problem. It's already in my calendar. I'm definitely going to be there. Well, you give her a second chance because, like I said, this is not normal for her. The next day, same exact thing happens. Your son calls you. I'm stranded again. You have to tell your boss, look, I have to walk out of this really important meeting right now because I got to go pick up my kid. Now you're feeling extremely irritated. And when someone doesn't do what they say they're going to do, when they're out of integrity with us, we start to lose belief and trust in what they say because they're not putting actions with their words. Have you ever heard the saying, actions speak louder than words? It's so true. Let's say at this point, she doesn't even call you back at all to say she's sorry or to say anything. And now you're getting really angry about this. She contacts you a couple of days later. She says, hey, I'm so sorry. She's crying. She's making up a million excuses as to why she could not follow through on her word. She says, please, I beg you, let me make it up to you. Let me make it up to you. Now, this is one of your really good friends, and this is very unlike her. So you decide to give her a third chance. And so Monday rolls around. She's supposed to be picking your child up from school. The same exact thing happens. She does not show up. Your child calls you. You got to leave work again to get your kid. And now you're like, I'm done. Now, this is a little bit of an exaggerated example, but you can see my point. The more that somebody doesn't do what they say they're going to do, many, many, many times, that's how we lose trust and belief in ourselves. I cannot tell you how many promises I made to myself over 37 years, up to that point in my life, before I'd read Heidi's blog post, 37 years. I had made so many promises to myself. Now, some of them I did keep, but there was a lot that I did not keep. And so I didn't trust or believe in myself to commit or to make healthy choices for myself, and not just with nutrition and exercise, but also in how I talked with myself. Because I had been out of integrity with myself for so long, I was always beating myself up. So to repair and rebuild your relationship with your friend who has not done what she said she is going to do, who's been out of integrity with you, what would have to happen? She would have to do what she said she's going to do. If you're going to give her another chance to repair and rebuild, it's like if she tells you she's going to do something, she's going to have to do it. And if she has a reason or an excuse as to why she can't do it, all she has to do is let you know, like, hey, I know I said I would do X, but I can't because this other thing came up, and so I'm not going to be able to do it. Right? So The same thing holds true with ourselves. When we have made promises to ourselves over and over and over and over, and we have not kept those promises or have not kept the majority of the promises, we don't have belief in ourselves. We don't have trust in ourselves. And in order to repair our relationship with ourselves, it all starts with a single promise. It all starts with committing to a single promise. It all starts with doing what you say you're going to do. Pick one thing for yourself and commit to it. The other thing that I found, this is the third thing I want to talk about, is I convinced myself it would be too hard and I wasn't going to be able to do this. The other thing I convinced myself of, and this was a little more subconscious, was that I didn't deserve it. I didn't deserve it. I was in my way. I was in my own way here. So the way that I convinced myself that this would be too hard and I couldn't do it is I said, I'm going to have to work out for like 8 hours a day. I'm going to have to track my food every day, stay within 10% of my macros. I'm going to have to start out, at 358 pounds. I think I was supposed to be drinking like 21 cups of water or something. I'm like, that's crazy. I can't do that. I can't work out every day because I had a severe issue with my feet that prevented me from doing much exercise. I was able to convince myself 100% there was no way that I could do this. And that was something that kept me stuck for a very, very long period of time. It was only when I realized that there were certain things that I could do. I had to shift my focus from the things I couldn't do to the things that I could do. No, maybe I wasn't ready to drink 21 cups of water, but I could commit to 8. Maybe I wasn't willing to stay within 10% of my macros, but I could track my food. Maybe I couldn't go around for, out in the neighborhood for a walk, but I could get in a pool and move. Maybe I couldn't do weights because I couldn't stand up and put weight on my feet with weights, but I could do seated weights. Once I started opening my eyes and getting out of my own way and realizing that there were actually a lot of things that I could do and commit to that didn't seem that hard. Take a multivitamin every day. Be a little bit nicer to myself instead of beating myself up. That's when things started changing for me. The fourth thing that I want to talk about, which is a huge thing, and we will be talking about this so much in the episodes in this podcast, I had to start learning how to trust the process. I had to learn how to start letting go of control. So what do I mean by trust the process? I mean accepting life on life's terms. Accepting that I was going to make mistakes. I'm a human being. That doesn't mean I'm a failure. That doesn't mean that I'm not good enough. So I decided to make a choice to learn from my mistakes instead of using my mistakes as an excuse to throw in the towel and quit and to tell myself I wasn't good enough or couldn't do this. I realized it was a choice. It was a choice how I dealt with my mistakes. And, I'm going to be saying this quote a million times in probably every episode of this podcast. You're going to hear this quote, which is one of my all-time favorite quotes. Life is not happening to you. Life is happening for you. I was playing a victim for so long. I felt like all these bad things always happened to me. Things were always going to be this way. If you find yourself thinking thoughts with the words always or never, chances are you're doing what we call all or nothing thinking. And that's a really great way to keep yourself stuck. There are a lot of things in life we can't control. People, places, things, situations. And a lot of times we can feel completely powerless because guess what we are? We're completely powerless over those things that we can't control. So in those moments when we're feeling hopeless and helpless and just whatever other negative emotion we're feeling, anger, frustration, etc., it's so important to surrender and let go and trust the process and focus on what we can control. And the other thing I would say there too is to have gratitude for what we do have. And these are things we're going to be talking about so much in this podcast. Gratitude is one of the most important tools that I have learned along my transformation journey. Anytime I find myself getting angry, upset, feeling sad, feeling like a victim, I immediately ask myself, what am I grateful for? To shift my mindset and my perspective. So let me ask you something. Which way feels better? When you trust the process and let go of control and learn from your mistakes, or when you use your mistakes as an excuse to quit and beat yourself up and then go back to your old habits, turn to food or other self-destructive behaviors? Which way feels better? And also, what have you got to lose by trusting the process? If you don't trust the process and you continue to beat yourself up and, tell yourself you're not good enough, not lovable, not worthy, whatever it is that you're telling yourself, you're going to stay stuck, right? And you're probably going to feel miserable. And there's no way you're going to be able to achieve your goals if you're putting yourself down like that. There's no way you're going to be able to start rebuilding your trust and belief in yourself if you're always tearing yourself down. So what have you got to lose by trusting the process, learning from your mistakes? And a lot of people know, I always say, I don't even like to call them mistakes. I like to call them learning opportunities, because that's what they are. What have you got to lose by learning from your choices in life? The answer is you have absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain. At the end of many of my episodes in this podcast, I'm going to be giving a call to action. The call to action for this episode consists of two things. So the first thing is to write down the consequences if you continue your life like this. And I'm not necessarily just talking about weight-related things here. Now, if that's an issue for you, yes, that's definitely going to be on here. If you continue making the choices you're going to make, of course you're going to gain weight, probably impact your health in ways like possibly high cholesterol, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, etc. Yes, correct. But I'm talking about also your mindset. Your mindset. If you continue beating yourself up, if you continue to expect perfection out of yourself, if you continue to get in your own way, if you continue to tell yourself you're not good enough and you're a failure, what will be the consequences? Because that impacts all areas of your life. Do you see that? Really take a hard look at all areas of your life and how what you tell yourself impacts that. Second thing is, write down why you don't deserve it or why you feel you can't do this, why you feel you don't deserve to transform your life or why you can't transform your life. We have a lot of reasons that we're telling ourselves in our head as to why we can't change. I've been there, done that. I had a million reasons and I believed them. I made the choice to believe them. It was only when I started writing stuff down, looking at it on paper, I realized that I was focusing on what I could not control. So I had to look at what could I control. So what can you control? What can you do? Remember, you're a warrior in progress and you can do anything you set your mind to. One step at a time, one day at a time.